Namaste. Good afternoon. Just came back from about 6 days before my birthday party. Great food. Taiwan mom and dad, thanks a lot. We had fun. Nice long talk. And I'm back in good spirits. Yesterday I talked to you about sounds of silence and about a couple days before having decided to embrace silence, meaning that I wasn't going to shut my mouth. And then I wondered, well, that means the end of this. And I enjoy this, and this is my teaching. This is the only way that I teach now is through this. The miracles of YouTube. And again, I thank them. I love making the eye contact. I imagine there's somebody out there listening, even if there's nobody. But I do like this format. It's much better than writing. It's more personal. It's more appropriate. It's more suitable. And more lasting, I hope. But so I talked about embracing silence, which I meant to take a vow of silence like I had before. And then I found the universe brought me the the audio book of Silence by Thich Nhat Hanh, that Vietnamese monk that spent most of his life in Plum Village in France. And I wish I would have had a chance to visit. I felt a very personal connection with him. And he was Bhakti Yoga, compassion. He was the element of Bhakti Yoga, the most effective advocate of this yogic path, the path of devotion and love and compassion and embracing all. And he really gave me an appreciation of connecting to the earth and mindfulness. Other people have gotten more credit than he did, but he didn't care. But he really epitomized mindfulness, the complete focus on the task at hand. And we talked about silence, and he gave me, I said, this is a little bit of repeat, a little bit of rehash, but 5 different silences, and I spoke of 2. One was, well, I spoke of 2, but I want to allude to 3. He called it thunderous silence, and that was imagining being by a waterfall that you had been next to your whole life. You've never been away more than out of earsight of the thunderous, and a great adjective, thunderous explosion of sound in silence. It was so loud that you couldn't talk. You couldn't hear the birds. You couldn't hear anything about water. And remember, water is, in my opinion, the greatest teacher. The patience, it flows to the lower. It wears the toughest out. It's relentless. When it's still, it's reflective, and it just epitomizes. And then, of course, ocean of life, the infinite ocean, the ocean of existence, the oneness. It's that our lives are but some wave splashing up against a rock and sending off drops. And this is how I see our incarnation, our life, is the length of that drop to return to the source, the oneness. And that unique isn't unique, but it's made of exactly the same thing. And that's what's so special about, we're unique, but we're all made of the same stuff. The cosmic dust. The dust of our ancestors, as Thich Nhat Hanh pointed out. that we're our ancestors wherever we're walking, every cell in our body. When we look at the stars, when we look everywhere, bits and pieces, remains of our commonality, our ancestry. So if you can't see the commonality easily, and this bringing it home, that then you're related to the cosmos. Everything in the cosmos is part of you, and you are part of it. You can't get much closer than that. But I talk this thunderous silence, and what I like is the idea that never being far enough away from the waterfall. And then I just carried it a step farther, that this is what life is. You live in a city, it's thunderous silence. Instead of looking at noise, and remember, silence is not the absence of noise. And we're talking about 5. Then here's the noisiest thing imaginable, a thunderous waterfall. So noisy even noise within the city, that you can't hear anything else except the waterfall. And then I said, let's take it further. Suppose that waterfall stops. Now, is this the silence that they talk about? The Zen I strove so hard for in Zen? Is this silencing the mind? Stopping the mind? Is this what it is? The absence of sound? But remember, that thunderous waterfall stops, and all of a sudden you can hear the other sounds. You can hear the birds, the insects, your steps upon the ground, your steps in the leaf. You can hear fruit fall from the trees. All of a sudden there's this wonderful world of sound. And words are nothing if not sound, are they? So silence originally meant to be the absence of sound, but how is that absence even possible? And maybe that's the Zen, the state of Zen that I never could touch when they talked about silencing the mind. Maybe that's it. But I think meaningfulness and love and perhaps there's better messages to get from Zen. For me, what Zen actually meant after I had left my rigorous practice, left the group, was when I started discovering that the clarity that I sought, that I was so hungry for, was only clarity of purpose. It wasn't clarity of any silent condition brought about by the shutting down, the dismantling, ignoring, delegating, relegating the mind to where its degree of appropriateness. It has a place, but where in the pecking order, these are all. But was clarity of purpose. And ironically, it was so funny to me. 2 things stand out in my 33-year practice of Zen. Zazen, Renzai Zen, the one with a koan, the one we face inwards instead of outwards, to distinguish from Soto Zen. Both came from the tradition of Dhammo, Bodhidharma, the 28th patriarch or 26th? I always get that. I think the 26th patriarch that went to China, and he was called the Persian because he had blue eyes, supposedly historically had blue eyes and more of a light complexion, and maybe he came from, he wasn't like your typical dark-skinned Indian, but he went into he left what is now Nepal to go into what is currently China, and he began 12 years facing the wall, the Soto Zen tradition, credited to look around and see the monks were in such physical shape that he started different martial arts as being part of the practice, the moving, that carried away all the way into my Renzai Zen practice, which happened to be Zen walking, of all things. But it's important to know the lineage, and it's important to see the history. So we call in China we call Dhammo, and Chan was the precursor to Zazen. Chan Buddhism left China, went through Korea like everything had to at that time. To get to Japan at those times, you had to go through Korea. And I understand that the Korean women were quite beautiful. They were known to, those invaders from China that wanted to go to Japan would steal all the 13-year-old beauties, and that's when they started the tradition of facial tattoos in Korea, because that made them less appealing. And Korea was kind of, it's interesting that Thailand kind of became a modern-day Korea, because Korea would tell the Chinese, welcome, but keep on going. Thailand told the Japanese, welcome, but keep on going to Burma, keep on going to Indonesia, keep on moving, welcome through here. And this is some kind of very Buddhist way of dealing with aggression, the invaders. Welcome them, but encourage them to create the environment that they need to move on. However you do that. Okay, so it's thunderous. And thunderous means that the noise is so loud, you look at a city, you can't even hear yourself think, as they say, which might be a good thing, according to my original understanding of Zen. Maybe I needed to be at the jet propulsion laboratory where things are so loud that I couldn't think. Maybe that would have been the solution to my conundrum of shutting the mind, drowning it out. But then the other sounds came in. So this thunderous silence came to me to mean the practice of no words, the practice of soundlessness. And it was more like, living life, we make sounds. But it was more like, stop the chatter, stop talking. So this was the thunderous silence, ironically. Thunderous silence leads to the shock of the waterfall stops, and you're just shocked by the silence. But slowly but surely, life sets in. And this is beautiful that you adapt, and that that silence is no longer empty. Silence is never empty. At first we had it overwhelmed by the sound, the fullness of it. And then we stopped that source of the noise. We turned the jet engine off. And then we were able to hear the sounds that were always there but had been drowned out. And this thunderous silence kind of leads to where I was going, was stop using words, to stop verbally communicating. And I assumed that meant written, because sometimes the written word is just as loud as if you screamed it from the top of your lungs. That's the irony of words. So thunderous silence kind of would culminate, the end game for me would be to shut my mouth. And I did it for a year. I practiced this, didn't utter a word for a year, I stopped talking to myself even. And I do that all the time. I love to talk to myself. But then Thich Nhat Hanh touched on what he called noble science. And noble science fit in with his main lesson is mindfulness. Being in the moment, as the common vernacular goes. The Eckhart Tolles of today, be here now. Yeah. Like there was some revelation. Thank you, Eckhart, for cluing me in from overstating the obvious. But anyway, full of judgment wasn't that statement, and I'm sorry, I have really no opinion about Eckhart Tolle. I know he's touched a lot of people's lives. And basically, I have to say that I can't relate to waking up on a park bench and just everything was all done. My struggles were of such epic proportions, that it's hard for me to imagine feeling useless one day, feeling suicidal the next day, and waking up on the park bench and everything is, there I am. Okay, can't say it didn't happen, but can't say that I can really relate. So that makes everything that he says at very best questionable. And again, that's a very personal decision. If he's helped you, bless him, because my goal is, if I can help one person, I'm a resounding success. In fact, I take it further. If one person learns one thing from me, or is reminded of one thing from me, or finds an idea worth pursuing from me, one person, one idea, that's it. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, step aside, because I've accomplished something which is infinitely more worthy than your collection of toys and money and power. I helped one person. And even the smallest thing, that's where I find my comfort. That's where I find my fulfillment. So, Thich Nhat Hanh, my Vietnamese brother, talked about noble silence. And as soon as I heard noble, because of the Four Noble Truths, and noble is such a noble word. And I mean that as simplistically as it sounds. Noble silence means practicing mindfulness even when it comes to talking. There's a time and a place for talking. There's a time and a place for sleeping. There's a time and a place for relieving yourself. There's a time and a place for feeding yourself. There's a time and a place for, if it's in your fractal, to procreate. There's a time and a place to search for that one that may or may not be out there, that could resonate, because that brought life full circle. Just the idea, simply the idea that anything that I said or did could have contributed to anyone's happiness. And it's not degrees of a little bit happy and a lot happy. It's beyond measurement. If I help one person for one moment on one thing, that's it. I've served my purpose. I've achieved, not committed, I've achieved my goal of worthwhileness. One person, one thing, no matter how we breathe, doesn't even matter what it is. That's the beauty of it. As a teacher, I used to say, if one student remembered anything I said 5 years, much less 10 years after I said it, if they could remember that one thing, no matter how inane it might have been, that That's my success. So you might say low expectations, but I might say grandiose, huge, writ large. The idea that you could influence, no matter how superficially, no matter how briefly, if you could have a positive impact on anything or anyone in this world, that there is no greater achievement. You can rest on your laurels. You can receive accolades by those who can appreciate. So this noble silence, this is what I'm practicing now. Today I didn't do a very good job. I haven't seen my parents for 2 years, and I did verbal diarrhea. And they're silent, they're quiet. And my dad doesn't speak English, so that makes it easier for him. My mom is quiet and patient. Maybe I talk too much, but I had a lot to relate to them. And it was mindful. So maybe mindful doesn't mean minimize. Maybe mindful means making the most of, make your words count. So this noble silence, this silence that leaves room for words, that leaves me an opportunity to continue this YouTube as the topics find me, as I find things that I want to share. So today is the beginning of my first day of practicing mindful speaking, mindful words. Just as finding the appropriate time, the mindful, the meaningful time to talk, not during eating, which is, it's minimizing. There's not many times it's really appropriate to talk. Maybe this is one of the few. But anyway, this is the path I'm embarking on now. This is my grand experiment. And thank you to Thach Nich for putting a word on it. Noble. And then attaching meaning to that word, noble silence, by practicing mindfulness. Namaste. Love you.